let's start with volunteering. Y'all heard some of the stats in the intro. Victoria, why don't we start with you? What motivates you to volunteer? Why do you do it?
I've definitely had a long history of volunteering my whole life. I used to volunteer at Deer Lodge Center and then at the St. Amant Center for about 6 years. I ran a program there. And, making sure that after COVID, I was still staying involved. I found it a bit difficult to find different organizations to join, which is kind of what led me to starting my own group that does consent education and safer partying awareness. But I'm really motivated to just be in community with my neighbors and help out where I can.
So it's the generosity piece. It's the spirit of volunteering for you. Yeah. And Aiden, how about you? What motivates you to volunteer?
I would say it's also the generosity. I don't think you're going to find anyone in this room, at least, who's going to say any otherwise.
It's also good for work experience, though. I mean, I guess that's a valid thing, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's why you're seeing a decline, because people are volunteering more out of necessity than out of the want to be kind, out of the want to create good in the world.
Got it. And do you think that's a generational thing?
I absolutely do, yes.
Yeah. How about for you, Kyler, because you have a bit of a different take on this?
I think it's just the impact. I think people want to make an impact. I think it matters to people, especially if you want to help people. I think everybody wants to help people. But like you mentioned, there's the resume portion of it. But at the same time, it's just intrinsic and extrinsic rewards and motivation for it. That's why I would do it. And that's why I've done it in the past. It's simply that I want to help.
So that's volunteering, but what about like the social media aspect of it? And also, where does volunteering bleed into sort of advocacy for things? Because you have a bit of a take on this.
Yes, I do, and thank you for asking. I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think social media is very good to make the voice of the voiceless heard. It lets you and puts focus on things that don't actually normally get attention, and that's fantastic. But the key word here is overwhelming. I think social media can be overwhelming. And when companies that are meant to keep you on the site for longer have to make you or have to promote you events and things that take you off the site, like volunteering, that require your physical action, it becomes a little bit of a conflict of interest, wouldn't you think?
So you think that more people then are online? I know that you've said before that Gen Z might not be really volunteering. Some people, they might be, they might support a GoFundMe or they might attend a protest.
Right.
But they may not show up in person.
You're right. So shout out my favorite prof at Asper, Dr. Grove. She told us about a little fact when I was in one of her classes, and it was when people donate and stuff like that, it kind of takes the weight off your shoulders. It makes you feel like you've done enough for the day. So I think social media is really it's targeted towards awareness and supporting awareness.
But you're not volunteering.
Exactly. There's a lack of action.
What do you guys think of that? Is that one of the things that lives generationally? You're both nodding. So Aiden, what's your take on that?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that, yes, they do have an incentive. Social medias they're money-making schemes. They're designed to keep you on, like you said, and yeah, they're going to keep you clicking. I also think that the rise of youth using social media during COVID has also given people a space to have a community, whereas before volunteering might have been a community 50 years ago, 40 years ago. So where people are having their communities and where they're spending their time has also drastically shifted, which is changing where people volunteer.
So how do we drastically shift back to in person? That's, I guess, the million-dollar question. But I wonder what your take on all of this is, Victoria, and getting more, people from your generation out there in person.
Yeah, I definitely think that social media makes it easier for people to, gain awareness about a cause or elevate something that they care about, especially like maybe niche issues that might not have, a dedicated organization in the city. But it's definitely about finding those connections about where you can take what you're passionate about. Say maybe you care about supporting people who are experiencing homelessness. Maybe you've been sharing GoFundMes and stuff. There also are organizations where you can drop in and volunteer, like Bear Clan or Mama Bear Clan, that do community patrols. So it's all about just making sure that we're not only building within our own communities and spreading awareness, but sharing with each other those organizations where we can branch out and go offline. And
how often do you hear, though, or what do you guys think of the argument, I guess I don't have time to volunteer, especially when you think about what you're doing at your age and what your peers are doing? Is that something that gets in the way as well?
Not for me personally, but I do believe there are people who are struggling to find time to volunteer. We're seeing a rise in people struggling to put food on their table. And when you can't put food on your table, your time is not going to go to volunteering. It's going to go to putting food on your table. Yeah. So I do think that as accessibility to food decreases, you're going to see a decrease in volunteering as well.
So cost of living is playing into this as well.
Yes.
It's at your generation, even for young generations. Do you think so too, Kyler?
I think so too. I would not to get into the political aspect because I'm here to speak about the human experience. And I spoke to a lot of people about this. And I think it's very important that I say that because it's not just coming from me. Many jobs, especially for Gen Z, because, the upper end of Gen Z would be about 27 now. And the lower end is like just out of teenagers, right? So they work in food, they work in service, they work in retail. Those jobs go into the night oftentimes, and they have weird scheduling. So you realize that it's sort of just that busy time in a person's life. And I think everybody can relate to that, especially if you've grown up through it. It's the turning point in a life where you don't have a lot of time. And while I don't agree that if, something does exactly what we were talking about, I have mixed opinions on if something is important, you give it time. But I understand why people would feel like they don't have enough time because if you're supporting yourself and you're 2 steps away from being the place you're supporting, it's kind of an issue.
What am I missing as an old lady? Like, what's different between the older generations and the younger generations in terms of volunteering? What else has changed? Any thoughts there?
Social media. It is social media.
It's that huge.
It
obviously.
is
It's
that
huge,
big of a thing because community is a huge portion to why you would volunteer. And it's that intrinsic reward. So if you can get that somewhere else or you can at least code it up, it's exactly
And you're getting it somewhere else,
I'll
right?
give
Like
you-
that's just how everybody's, gone through it.
I can give you an example. It's like if you're sick and you take sugar pills, right? Maybe it works for you and you get better over time. But if everyone's sick and everyone's taking sugar pills, we get nowhere because everyone stays sick.
Is your hand up?
Yeah.
Aiden,
I also wanted to add, I say this as someone who isn't religious, but I think a decline in religion has led to a decline in volunteering because, people were motivated by community in that sense. They had this group that they were at least volunteering at a church or a place of worship.
There's some stats to back that up, actually. We did this on our faith column, actually, recently. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
different groups.
I do believe, that decline in religion.
So what do you build community, Victoria? I'm just curious because you're heavy into volunteering, obviously, and you see the value in that. Is it? You said you always have volunteered though, and come from that place of generosity. But what about connection? Do you still build community online, as most of your younger generation peers would as well? And does volunteering have anything to do with building community too?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely try to serve as kind of a resource for people on the internet. I try to share different, not just what I'm doing with my organizations or volunteering, but anything I'm seeing on my Instagram, opportunities for people to get involved, just making sure that that's being circulated amongst people that, maybe they follow me because they met me at school or they met me at my work. Maybe they're not in a volunteering circle and they don't have people that are going to be sharing those things. So I think that's really important. I definitely agree, like with the religion aspect. I mean, we had in my high school, we had like Christian service, mandatory volunteering. But it's also, I think the cost of living is a big deal. But the way I see volunteering is that, I would like, if I was in need of help or assistance, I would like someone to help me. So I'm paying it forward now. But in the way that if people don't have time to volunteer because they are busy working, because they are, struggling to afford, they're working 1, 2, 3 jobs, still going to school, it doesn't mean that, there's no moral failing there. And there's still ways to get involved. Even if I am, strapped on time, I still, if I have a car, I can drive something, I can help with errands for a group or something. But there's little ways to get involved. And I don't think it's like an all or nothing. And I think youth just need to feel engaged.
Have we become too global? I do. This is me speaking from an older generation, right? So volunteering and advocacy used to always be local and very small. You'd look at Winnipeg, Manitoba, because you weren't really connected globally. I mean, I'm going way back. I'm thinking about even my grandparents and such. Everyone's connected in the world. You can choose to spend your time online or advocating for causes that aren't here. What about local volunteering? This is leading into the last section about how do we get Gen Z more engaged and such. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think we should start with Aiden.
Okay, let's go to Aiden.
Okay, well, I was thinking about this in the context of my university. I think that volunteer organizations need to come to the university, need to have events, letting youth know, okay, we are here, we have these opportunities for you. Because it was said to me that the first barrier to volunteering is having an in, knowing who to talk to, and where to actually go to start volunteering. So I think that would be such a wonderful way to actually get youth to know the opportunities that are available to them.
Got it. So people aren't always connecting, and also with local opportunities then to understanding where they're at. What do you think is the key to getting more Gen Zers volunteering?
Yeah, definitely meeting people where they're at. I mean, there's lots of students who volunteer like with the university, at school, or with organizations that might run through that. But if you're busy going to class and busy working, you don't have time to look these things up on the internet. And there's even things that are simple, like I know Canada Blood blood services sometimes brings their stem or their swabs for their cheek for blood donation and stuff. Simple things like that, that's volunteering too. So there's lots of different opportunities. And if organizations can get out to the school, it saves people that one extra step of finding out.
What about the traditional campaigns that are run? Do you think that they're not landing maybe, or that maybe they're just not in the right spaces, I suppose?
I feel like sometimes, like, I mean, growing up seeing all this stuff, like, not that we're desensitized to it, but I feel like the idea of charity and volunteering isn't necessarily less present or less visible. It's just those extra external things. Like, do we have time? Are we, do we know where to go?
Or you presume someone's doing it. I think that happens with volunteering at all generations, right? You're like, oh, well, they must have volunteers because, they've been around for so long. Kyler?
Well, I think, honestly, if we're being so for real with you, I just want to make sure you repeat the question because I want to make sure I give you the right answer to
I'm
it.
wondering how we engage more people, Gen Zers, in volunteering.
Right. So I think it's about awareness, but it's about specifically being careful. You have to make people care, but you have to be careful because I cannot tell you how many times, I think we've all experienced this, we've gotten the sad puppy ad, we've gotten the starving children ad, and they mean something and they're
You're
very
checked out of it
important.
a bit.
They're very important.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah, they
That's what
completely
Victoria
cut
was
you off,
saying
but
a bit,
it turns you. And that's the most unfortunate thing. It makes you either desensitized or it turns you against it. So they need to find ways to be more careful and to make you care because this is a very
How
important
does it
thing.
turn you against it? Did you nod to that too? I'm wondering. There's
think
two of
some-
you are saying that here.
Sometimes people can just feel like, perhaps, well, why are you asking me for money? I don't have money or I'm busy. But there's a way to, we can sow empathy without necessarily being able to do something about it right in that moment. It's
Got
about
it.
building that.
It's authenticity.
Yeah. So interesting, you guys, this week. Thank you very much for being here. Happy holidays. Have a good season, volunteering or not. Nice to see you, Kyler, Aiden, Victoria. Take care. That's our Gen Z panel. Aiden Peters, 18, University of Manitoba Economics student. Victoria Romero, 23, University of Manitoba Political Studies student. And Kyler Zanelli's 22, and he's a business student at the University of Manitoba. So if you're a Gen Zer who volunteers, we want to know for what and why and what motivates you. 204-788-3205.